Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here. In this video, I'm going to be cleaning and oiling the Singer Model 327. This machine just lifts straight out of the base. There are no hinges in it. Going with the front of the machine, I'm guessing this little screw here. Yep. So this is some sort of metal, it's not steel, but it's a metal faceplate, like a pot metal sort of faceplate. There's a lot of old fuzz that seems to be caught up in like old oil. Let's take the top off. I think it's just a couple of screws. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and oil it up now. There was nothing in there that was like grime that was like clogging it up or anything. It was just old dust. So I'm being a little bit aggressive with the oiling on this. It's all just a little bit sticky, and I'm thinking that might be more on this back part. It's just sort of what I'm feeling. All right, let's move on to oiling the top here. Got some old gear grease through here. There's not a lot of it though. There is some old gummy old gear grease, but thankfully it's not just gooped on there and it's not locking everything up. Just old. It's not like somebody put something stupid on there or anything. You know, it seems to be a pretty good product. It's just old. Maybe this sat somewhere hot for a point in its life. Who knows? Now this is a little zigzag function on it. Sort of like a permanently built-in cam. There's more sort of slightly gummy grease behind this cam. So these two main gear areas here on the top, one right here for the zigzag and one right here, which is like the main drive. Just cleaning the old gunk off of those and putting new grease on them helped tremendously for this thing to move smoother, because it is already moving a little bit smoother. So let's keep going and take the back off here. Looks like I've got a couple of screws. I'll probably have to take the hand wheel off here. Then I'm just going to clean this thing up. So this does say on it, it says Singer, G Britain. So this was made in Great Britain. And there's like a part number. And I'm just going through and cleaning this all as I go. All right, I saw, I'm locking it back up. There doesn't seem to be anything for me to do immediately, unless I had a belt to replace this one with. This one's not fraying or anything, it just seems a little bit old, but I don't think that's going to affect the machine's function all that much. Okay, I got the back piece on. This piece is definitely like a pot metal, but it is metal. The front piece was a pot metal, but metal. The top piece was, I think, definitely plastic, which I guess is okay. It doesn't take any stress or anything, but it is awfully early of a machine. This is early 60s for them to start using so much plastic on it. But I haven't found any internal gears that were plastic, except the built-in zigzag cam is a plastic one. I guess it doesn't take a lot of strain, but that one's a bit disappointing. It seems to be doing okay, but it's still gummy. I'm going to go ahead and close up the top and everything and then flip it around to the bottom. I mean, right off the bat, there's not a lot of like gunked up gear grease or anything that I can see. Let's just oil it up and see what that does. So the shuttle area, or the bobbin area, is making a little bit of noise down here, but it's not super easy to get to. Okay, I got the bobbin area here from the top. I'm going to try to oil things from this side. And I'm putting way more oil on here than I would if I was regularly sewing with this. That belt is still creaking on me. I don't like it. So at this point, I've cleaned up all the like gunky parts of the internal mechanisms. I have oiled the ever-living bejesus out of it. It's moving much smoother than when I started, but still not as smooth as I would like. But I'm going to clean down the outside and everything now. And once I do that, I will run it for a while. And hopefully I can just sort of run through the oil and the grease and get that more distributed. And sometimes they just work a little bit better after they've ran for a little bit. I'm kind of a fan of this like mid-century mint green. It looks nice and sturdy. Like this looks like, it looks at least like a durable machine that's gonna sew. Like, the bobbin winder is really bizarre, weird bobbin winder. I don't have any other machines that take class 66 bobbins. And I don't know if I can wind a class 66 bobbin on my other machines. We'll see. But this is just, you know, you stick the bobbin on there and you press this down, and that's the totality of the winder, which worries me a bit because I haven't had good luck with that style of winder. It doesn't seem to work as well as it ought ever. I'm going to be bold and use a little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean this area. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have bothered it, but it also doesn't seem to have cleaned it very much. You know, by no means am I giving this a full restoration. It's just sort of a tune-up. Definitely not on par with like a professional sewing machine mechanic who was fixing this up to sell. It's definitely not on that level, but it's, you know, somebody who's going to play with it for a while, like use this machine to sew and just figure out what he's doing with it. It's a new type of machine for me. So it's also one of the reasons I will sometimes bid on these sort of, what I'm looking for is machines that are going to be pretty decent machines, but also aren't terribly desirable, because I would feel terrible if I got one that is like a really desirable model and I, you know, just went blundering through just trying to figure out what I was doing and I messed it up, or like permanently broke something, or, you know, lost a screw that's cost $500 to replace or is impossible to replace. That sort of thing. I don't want to be that guy. So while I'm still sort of, you know, fairly novice at messing around with vintage machines, I'm trying to look for, you know, the easier and less desirable ones to work on, but that will still be like nice, sturdy machines. Because, you know, nothing's going to be even worse than getting a cheap machine like a touch and sew with like a broken plastic gear in it or something. Would be way out of my league to fix. I've got this little extra red felt piece that goes on the bottom of the spool pin. Put a nice little hat on it. I'm trying to get this old masking tape off the plastic up here, and it's kind of stuck. I think it's in good enough, clean enough condition that I'm happy with it for now. And as I use it, I can clean it up more and just have it feel more loved as it gets more used. So I'm going to set this up for sewing and do a little bit of tests and get ready, because I'm about to make another vintage shirt and I want to use this machine to make it with. So I have this class 66 bobbin, which I think is the correct one. And I'm going to try to wind it on this bobbin winder. All right, take out the thread through, push the bobbin winder down into place, press on the foot pedal, and this should work. Ew. Guess it's, oh, forgot a crucial step. It's probably got to go through this part down here. Okay, when all else fails, read the directions. I do have the manual. I guess I should use it. Winding the bobbin, disengage the clutch. I mean, I knew that. Why wasn't I thinking? Place empty bobbin on spindle. Press bobbin winder down against wheel. Lead the thread through the thread guides. Over here first. Through there. Down through here. Up into the bobbin. Okay, that makes more sense. Yes, this seems to be working. I thought I had disengaged the clutch. I don't know why the needle is still moving. Okay, it doesn't stop on its own, so I guess I just have to judge that it's a very full bobbin. And threading the bobbin case. Open slide insert plate. Place bobbin into case. Lead thread into slot and under spring. Draw thread and notch at end of spring. I guess this is it. Pull about 3 inches of thread across the bobbin. Well, I got about 13 inches, but whatever. Close slide plate. All right, we'll see. Upper threading. Got the first part done. What now? What's next? Through this part right here. Okay, yeah. No. No. Down. Into the tension assembly. That looks right. So I just held the thread here and I pulled it until I got around this little hook and spring. Through the take-up lever. Back down. Through this piece here. There's a piece here right on the front that I'm threading it through. It is worth noting at this point that I am just using the needle that's already in here. God knows what this poor needle has gone through. I don't. But I am just using it. And see if it sews. Okay. It seems to have caught the bobbin thread. That's a good sign. So I've got stitch length here. Stitch width here. And this is the sort where you go all the way up and it reverses, you go all the way down and it's forward, or you go down and it's forward. Like there's a 0 somewhere in the middle point there. And then you just adjust this screw to, if you want to remember which spot. So if I want it on the like 2mm stitch, I tighten the screw enough to where it stops there. Then I do up to reverse, and then I'll go flip back down and it puts me back in the 2mm spot again. So I have just a little polyester fabric here that I ordered thinking it would be decent, and man is it not. Feels like sandpaper. So let's see how you sew. This is at a 2mm or like a 12 setting, so this is fairly dense stitches. All right. Sounds good. Definitely got some problems with the stitches. Sort of wobbly, wonky stitches. So, very first thing, let's put a new needle in, like I said. Don't know anything about that poor needle. All right, let's do this again and just see what changing the needle does, if anything. And this may be a case of it just needs to, well, let me see. This was the bottom before. I want to keep the same side on the top each time. This may be a case of it needs to just run a while to work out the kinks. This foot pedal is not very sensitive. Oi. Oi, oi, oi. So these are coming out much better. I just noticed that I had the zigzag on a little bit, which I did not mean to. But I think switching out the needle pretty much seems to have fixed it already. Let's see. Okay, well, it looks nice on the top, but the bottom tension is a hot mess. So I started out right here with the old needle, and it was just kind of janky, wobbly, weird looking. I switched out to a new needle, and this is what I got right here, which looked even in length, but there's a little bit of width to it, and that's when I realized I had the zigzag on just a tiny bit. So I turned that off, and it made a nice straight stitch on the top. These are fairly close, like very small stitches. So I'm going to up it a little bit and see what that looks like. But you can definitely see how just switching out the needle to a fresh one made the difference with the top stitching. And then turning the zigzag off, obviously, give it a nice straight stitch. Then here onto the back, this was the first line with the bad needle. Then when I put the right needle in, it looked nicer on top, but I was getting this mess on the bottom. And then I just upped the tension, the upper tension, and that seems to have straightened out that mess on the bottom. So the takeaway that I'm excited about here is that this machine seems to sew. I just need to get the settings dialed in, and it seems to be fairly easy. I did manage to get it threaded correctly, so that is super exciting. Yep, I've got it. Let's do the zigzag. Let's do a full width zigzag first. But the settings seem to be right. The way it does zigzag is maybe not my favorite. The way this like longer stitch length zigzag is just really weird. I've just been sewing with this for just a little bit, and already this wheel is much easier to turn. So that tells me that it just needed to run a little bit, which is good. Okay, so I have this Singer Model 327 all cleaned up and oiled. I got the tension settings all dialed in. It does a beautiful straight stitch. It does a good zigzag stitch, not my favorite one, but it does a good zigzag stitch. And I'm getting ready to start making a vintage shirt with this machine. For that shirt, I'm using this unprinted pattern from the 1930s. It's kind of a weirdo pattern, but it's my favorite. It has a zipper for the front closure. I've made a couple of those and I really like them. So I hope that you'll come back and watch this machine in action, actually making a garment like it was intended to. If you have liked this video, please let me know by giving it a like. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.